I'm sort of late in this video. I thought I had already done this video and I had not. I'm recalling about 5 months ago, I did a video on magical powders. I did a video on making Cascarilla powder and on making witch's black salt and what you can do with those, how you can make those just with things you have around the house. And I mentioned that Cascarilla powder is something that is used to make magical chalk. And I would make a video. Well, I didn't make the video. I'm sorry I didn't make the video. So I'm making that today. I want to show you one method of doing it. I have to tell you that YouTube and the internet is absolutely loaded with recipes and videos people use to make chalk. Specifically, if you want to make what they call sidewalk chalk, or because a lot of the homeschooling people or daycare people make it for children, so it's made all the time. A lot of witches use the same kind of recipe and add things to them, which is what I'm doing, adding things to it to make the chalk magical, to give it special properties to be used for certain reasons. The caveat I must add here is you're going to have to experiment probably and work with whatever works for you. There are recipes that use all kinds of ingredients. Some will tell you just use Cascarilla powder. Some will use flour and water. Some will use cornstarch, some in combination with the Cascarilla powder. Some will use cornstarch, like I said, and water. Some will add baking soda. Some will they do all kinds of things. And I'm going to show you, at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a recipe, an alternate recipe that I did use, that used flour, cornstarch, I believe, with the Cascarilla powder and water, plus the additives, and what my result was. And then I'm going to show you what my result is with what I'm going to show you today. And today I'm going to use a little bit different ingredient, and I will tell you why. I'll tell you why in just a minute. But first, I want to remind you, Cascarilla powder is something that anybody can make. You can make it at home. Watch my video, and it uses eggshells. These are eggshells that we have collected from our own hens. We collect all the time. As a matter of fact, in order for me to shoot this video today, my husband went and got this out of the hen yard so I could share these, because he has this jar out there. We feed these back to our hens. We collect their egg. When we use the eggs, he rinses, my husband does it, rinses the egg very well, and then he bakes them, dries them in the oven, which changes the texture of the eggshell a little bit, so the hens don't really recognize the eggshells anymore as being eggshells, because we don't want them to eat those. And then we feed them back. They will peck at this. We keep it outside in their run, and they will pick at this and eat it as they know. They just seem to know when to have some of this, like they do. We keep grit out there for them too. They'll just from time to time, maybe, or oyster shell or whatever, they just sort of pick at it. They seem to know when they need that balance in their diet. And hens need calcium, a lot of calcium, in order to make calcium, which in order to lay eggs, they need a good strong shell. So a lot of calcium is very, very important for hens. That aside, so we always have these on hand. And what we do is then I will just take what I need. I will take these eggshells and I will grind it into a very fine powder using either a mortar and pestle. And I show you how I do it on the other video. Again, I will put that link below in the description box. But I make it into a very fine powder. Here I have it in an envelope because I happen to sell this. I will sell this in my shop if anybody, for some reason, wants Cascarilla powder from my hens. I will say, please note, mine is not pure white because my hens lay various shades of brown eggs for the most part. If you lay a blue or green shade of an egg, sometimes almost a pinky shade. but it doesn't matter what color it is. Any color will work. Any color will work. So you can use this just with eggs you buy at the grocery store. Again, information about making the powder itself is on the video that I'm linking to below, and it's actually on the first part. The video deals with two parts. The first, not two parts, but the first half of the video, so to speak, is about Cascarilla powder. The second half of the video is about the witch's black salt. So if you're interested in one or the other, that's where you would find the information. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that it goes to a very fine form, and this is the form that we use when we're going to make chalk. We want it fine because that's the ingredient that will bind the chalk together. Okay, so I'm going to just talk to you about two different kinds of chalk, why we would use chalk. Why do we want chalk? Because if you will, again, look at my video about the Cascarilla powder, I talk about using Cascarilla powder and just basically sprinkling it into a circle to protect a spell, or a circle to protect you during a ritual, or to put a line, a barrier between you and something. Cascarilla powder, it also was like inside your door, keeping protection, protecting your home. It's also a cleansing. It's a great cleansing powder as well, which all those properties I talk about there. So why do we need, if we can just use it in this form, is the question. If we can just use it in this form, why would we use it? Why would we have to make a chalk? Well, the one reason that I use it is if I want to make my line or my sigil or my circle or whatever it is outside, particularly as a barrier upon entering my home, or as a message that I want to write, that I might want to write on the sidewalk or whatever. I want something that's going to last and that's not going to be disturbed easily by wind or by people passing through or whatever. So I will use a chalk because the chalk is a little longer lasting, a little more durable for that. But if you just take regular chalk, I think you can imagine, it's possible if you take regular chalk and use it like chalkboard chalk and use it out on a sidewalk or a rough sidewalk or whatever, it wears down really very fast and it crumbles very easily. It can crumble very easily. If you remember when you were a child, I know we played a lot of hopscotch when I was a child. And I remember we always wanted the little ends when the chalkboard, in my day we had, I sound really old, we actually used chalkboards. They don't use those anymore. And ours were called blackboards because the board was actually black, not green, that it became in the schools. They replaced it with green. But the blackboard, we used the chalk on there. And when the chalk got really short, the teacher would not want it anymore because it was hard for her to write with on the board. So we would collect those little tiny short pieces of chalk, and that's what we would use when we made our hopscotch, because it was easier for us to hold as we were maybe children, but also being short, it wasn't going to break easily when we were trying to write, because depending on what the sidewalk or the surface, if it was a pavement, somebody's driveway, or in our case even in school, it was in the parking lot. Sometimes we played on a section of parking lot at the school. Some was very smooth and some was rough. And it was sometimes you had to really, really go over it a couple of times to see the line well enough to see the numbers or your lines or whatever you were drawing. And we needed something really durable. And that's really the case too with witch's chalk. If you're going to use it outside, you need something durable. And that's what I was really looking for when I formulated the recipe that I like to use the best. So I'm going to show you the finished chalk, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like when you write, so you can see how good it works, how well it works. But in the meantime, I just want to show you a quick recipe, how we would make it. But first of all, I want to say one more thing. Not all recipes are equal, and some you will not be able to see maybe as clearly as others, depending on what you write it on. As you can see, you will see my chalk might not be as white, depending on what you add to it, which I will show you in my recipes, things that I add. Depending on what you add to it, it even colors it further. It might discolor it a little further so that it might not be as white as you might see, so it might be harder to show up on your surface. But I want to remind you that once you make the line, or once you make the sigil, even with just your Cascarilla powder, it remains. Even if it is disturbed in a little way, or it fades, or it rains, and your line still will remain. It still lingers. Your protection still lingers for a while. Think about it in this way, if you will. I'm one of these people, and I know some people won't, this will make no sense at all to, but others will. Sometimes that you will, if you want to see a word, try to recall a word, or maybe see how a word is spelled. You're trying to spell a word. I'm dating myself further because now I realize you can just look at your phone to see how it's spelled, but that's not the way I think, because I wasn't raised that way. I've learned to spell, and it's important when I read a word, I like when I spell it correctly, if I can, and I will write it in the air, or I will try to visualize something in the air by writing in the air. Like if I write, what's a good word? If I just write, niece. Is niece Niece, Niece, or Neice? Oh, I can see right away. No, that's wrong. But anyway, I will write it in the air to look at it, and I will then have to erase it. If I don't erase it, it remains. That is so weird because I'm erasing with my left hand, and this is my right hand. I can't get used to this. Anyway, I have to erase it because it stays. And that's sort of the same principle with your Cascarilla powder. You make your circle, or you make, your sigil, or whatever you're drawing. It's going to stay there even if it's a little disturbed. Think about ritual. Think about casting a circle at ritual. Before ritual, you usually cast or do anything magical, especially at ritual though, you will cast a circle. And there's several ways you can cast a circle. You can cast a circle using, your athame. You can cast a circle using your wand, your besom, your broom. You can cast a circle using your hand. You can cast a circle by walking the circle. A lot of ways you can do it. But you're not actually seeing the circle, are you? But it is there, and it remains there until you remove it when you open the circle at the end of the ritual. It's the same kind of thing with this powder, okay? So just keep that in mind. It's not necessary that you make the chalk. You can still use the Cascarilla powder just as well, even if it's disturbed outside, even if it gets rained on and goes away faster than you would like. But it's kind of fun having the chalk, and I'll show you at the end one of the ways it is kind of fun. Okay, I've talked enough. So I'm going to change my camera angle, and I will show you how I make the chalk. Okay, I'm going to show you the recipe. I'm going to show you how to do my most recent recipe, my most recent version of Magickal Chalk. I've made several. I've made a lot. And like I said before, I have used different combinations of ingredients. And it's sort of like Goldilocks. It's like Goldilocks eating the porridge. One of them too hot, one too cold, and one just right, perhaps. There's a fine line between getting something that is too crumbly and not to stay together at all, and getting something that is too hard, just too hard to be effective. And I will show you that at the end, what I mean by that. But I found that with all of the combinations of items that I think I like right now the best is using this product. Instead of the flour, instead of the baking soda, the cornstarch, and instead of the, what else did I say that they use in there? Some people used, maybe baking soda, did they? I'm using plaster of Paris. And I think that says it backwards. I hope not, but I think it does. But it's plaster of Paris. This is the kind of stuff that when you were maybe in preschool or in kindergarten, you made an imprint, probably preschool, you made an imprint of your hand, and you gave that to your mother and father, or mother and father, somebody, your grandmother, with your, you painted it after it got hard, and they hang that on their wall. That's a little memory thing that they have. This is not what they make real chalk out of either. They real make gypsum. I think they use gypsum. I'm not sure what they use to make, like the kind of chalk that you run in the board. But this, I think, kind of works too. One thing I like about this is it seems to, when it is ready to use, it seems to be not quite as hard. We'll see if that's the case or not. But we're giving it a try right now. It's just the basic, the base ingredient, really, because, really it's not a magic one anyway. It's just like a binding. Think of it as a binding agent. Your Cascarilla powder and your other magical additives are what's important in this recipe. So everything else that goes in here is magical. This is just something that I happen to be using. Okay, so you don't have to have this, but this is readily available at Michael's, any craft store, such as Michael's. It's readily available, and it's really not expensive, I don't think. And it comes in a really big, giant tub. I'm sure it's smaller. But if you want to just use what you have on hand, again, it's possible to use flour, cornstarch, maybe baking soda, with your eggshells. Okay, with your eggshells. So anyway, what I'm going to mix in, this is kind of important. This is non-ingestible. You're not supposed to eat this. And I don't know about eating some of the other things that I'm putting in here, so definitely not some of the other things I'm putting in here. So, and also it might harden fast or whatever. It might be too messy for you to want to try to wash up after. So what I like to use is, like, I just recycle. This is a yogurt container from Greek yogurt, Trader Joe's Greek yogurt, which we always have. And it's recyclable. But what I've already made chalk in here several times, and it rinses out very well, and you can just use it again. And I can use the tools inside it. So I use something like this that I can either then rinse out and put it in the recycling, or keep using it for the same purpose. You can even write on here what you use it for until you want to, which is sort of cool. To stir, I use combination. Sometimes I use these little skewers. I use these a lot in my spell work, magical work, housekeeping. This is just a skewer that you buy at the grocery store to make little skewers, little cocktail length. I like it because it's a nice, thick, heavy duty, and it's good for stirring or whatever. Also, you can use a plastic spoon, a disposable, that you can buy at the store. This is just something that I have in the drawer for when we go to when I don't want to wash dishes. Like if we go to the beach or something, I might take a plastic spoon. And more than likely, I don't do that too much anymore. I try to bring things home and wash them, but anyway, I don't want to use one of my spoons that I'm going to eat my yogurt off of to make this. So I keep some of these on hand. Okay. The other thing that I'm using is I have these syringes. I have a lot of these syringes. This, I guess, is not necessary at all, but you will see while I use these. I have a whole cupboard of these because I have 5 cats, and cats always need an antibiotic. And this is the way we give it to them, and they have a nice big hole at the bottom because they're for dispensing, by mouth. You don't have to have this. You could use a dropper, or you could just use, be real careful, like a spoon. But you want to add your water gradually, because if you add too much water, then you're going to have to add more powder, and it's going to throw you all off. So you only want to add as much water as you want to add. You don't want to add any more. Okay. So this is what I have. So, and the only other thing I have, this is a bowl for my kitchen, but this is just eggshells in here. This is just Cascarilla I have made, but I haven't bagged yet. So I'm going to use this first. The only other thing I have in here is I have a measuring cup. It's not a cup. but it's something that I use for my dyes, and I don't ever use it on food. It's from the dollar store. That thing really fits on there, let me tell you. And it's red. I have some spoons too that are red in my dye kits. That tells me don't use this for food. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just measure out. This is my recipe using this plaster of Paris. And I don't know if you can see it or not. But this powder is not purely, it's not real white. It's has a little grayish tinge to it. So it's not going to be as white. It's going to not make the chalk too white either. So, but we're again not going to worry about that. So anyway, for my recipe, I'm going to start out with, I'm going to put 2/3, so I'm going to measure 2 of these. I think my recipe is sort of, it averages with this kind of a powder. You can tell my baker I made a level cup. It doesn't have to be level. But I just, put this back on. I have the fan running and I don't want this to blow all over my house. So, which is a little tricky. Which is why I'm wearing a hat today, because my hair was blowing right into my face when I was trying to record this video. Okay. So anyway, I just estimated 2/3. So if you go in ratios, it's 2 parts of that. Basically, generally, is sort of an estimate would be 2 parts of that to 1 part water if you wanted to measure. But I wouldn't put in all my water at once. Okay, so I just put that in there. And of course, now for the star of the show is going to go in next, and I'm going to put my Cascarilla powder. And for this amount, which this was 2/3, I'm going to put a nice rounded spoon. A nice rounded spoon of Cascarilla powder in there. You can add a little more if you wish. A little more, I wouldn't use less. I would use at least that much. It might make it a little, I don't know if it might make it a little softer. Adding a little more, we'll see. And then, I mentioned I was going to use two, I usually use 2 kinds of, chalk. I make a general protection chalk, which is here in this case it would be the, plaster of Paris, the Cascarilla powder. It would also contain cinnamon, and I just would use cinnamon from my spice cabinet or from my witch's cabinet. I have it in both. Which cinnamon is really a good tool to just is general to lift or increase one's power, your personal power. It's a good ingredient to ensure success in your spell work. It's strength. It's a symbol of strength or prosperity. It's good for healing, and it's also really good for protection. So it's just a really good boost. Any kind of a spell that you want, particularly when you want a positive outcome. Cinnamon, it doesn't ever hurt to use at least a pinch of cinnamon. So when I make the chalk, I would put about I would say about a half a teaspoon of cinnamon in this amount that I'm using now. Or maybe, no, I would say maybe a teaspoon. If I use this measure, like a half of this would be about a teaspoon. And I would use that, but I wouldn't use any more than that. It smells wonderful. It makes your chalk smell wonderful. You will love it. But again, if you add too much of it, it will make your chalk really dark. And you don't want your chalk to be too dark that you can't even see it. Okay, so anyway, I would use the cinnamon. And the other, and I'm not going to do it because I already did. I made a batch of it yesterday. I can show you, so I could show you a finished chalk, a 24-hour chalk. So I'm not going to do this one again. And then I also added rosemary. And in my case, I added dry rosemary. I don't usually ever have this. I had this left over from something I had to have for, I don't know what, some other use. Because I have rosemary. I have a big bush of rosemary. and it dries really easily, and I usually dry it, and I dry my own or whatever, but this was really dry. This is old, and so I know it's really dry. It's not old, but it's pretty old. I know it's really, really dry. And while you could use fresh rosemary in the recipe, the idea to get chalk is to get rid of the moisture. You have to wait till the moisture goes out of the chalk. And if you have something like a fresh herb inside the chalk, it's going to hold that moisture in a little longer. So you just keep that in mind if you're making it. It also could make pockets. I don't know that it would, but it might leave little pockets as the rosemary dries, as the chalk pulls the moisture out of that little piece of dried rosemary. It might leave spaces in there, which might compromise your chalk and have your chalk break more readily. I'm not sure. I'm just making a guess. Just making a guess. So anyway, I would just use like a pinch, like really only a true teaspoon. Rosemary is such a strong herb. It does not take much. And again, I love rosemary because rosemary is a very, very strong protection herb. It wards off all evil spirits and negative energy. It can keep, if you're going to use this for magical chalk, it can keep burglars and harmful people from coming into your house. During the Middle Ages, they used to hang rosemary to protect them against the plague. I don't think it would work against our plague we're having now, but it certainly will keep out the negativity caused by it. People also in the Middle Ages, they would carry a twig of rosemary on them to protect them from evil eye. It was hung over cribs and still is by some today to prevent the fairies from coming and stealing the babies while they were sleeping. So it has for centuries been considered a very, very strong protective herb. And I think it's really a very important ingredient in all of my magical chalk. No matter what I use it for, I'm going to add rosemary. A little bit of rosemary at least to it. Okay. So anyway, I would have done that. And that would be for just a basic protection chalk. But we're not going to make a basic protection chalk today. Today I'm making something that I want to be using as we get closer to Samhain. I realize we just got into Mabon. But it's Samhain. One of the things that I do at Samhain is that I communicate, try to, open the line of communications with the spirits from the underworld, especially with ancestors, with welcome relatives. I leave offerings for, on Samhain Eve, I leave offerings for passing spirits out in the garden. So I will like to write a message out using the chalk out on the sidewalk along my front garden. And I can write a welcoming message to my grandfather. I can write a personal, welcome Harry. Or I can say, keep out if I want to keep out negative spirits. Whatever my intention is at the time when I write the chalk, whatever the spell is, I want a good kind of chalk that is commonly called graveyard chalk. It might be called spirit chalk. There's some other names for it. But I call it graveyard chalk because I use graveyard dirt as the catalyst in the chalk. Okay, and the graveyard dirt, let me set that aside. So I've got a nice big jar of it here. This wasn't actually taken from a grave. It was taken, from a graveyard. That's all I need to say. So a lot of people use graveyard dirt in their magic for different reasons. I love it for communicating with the, again, those who've passed on. If you don't have graveyard dirt, no problem. You don't need graveyard dirt. Oh, Nicky, I can't even talk. First, let me put this in first. For this batch, I'm trying to get the part that is, has some really clumpy dirt in here. I'm going to try to get something that is, I should sift it. But I can break it up with my fingers. I'm going to use about a spoon of it. I'm putting about a spoon of it, as you can see. But before I add it, I'm going to just put it in my fingers. And any clumps, I'm going to break up. so it will mix up. I just smashed it in between my fingers like that. And there's some hard lumps that smash up really easily. And then I can, so it'll mix. If I leave these big lumps, it's gonna be really hard to mix. And if it's too hard to break, if it turns out that it's a rock or something, I just put it back in there. So only things that I can easily break up go in. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you, those of you, I don't want you to panic. If you do not have a graveyard or you are not comfortable going to a graveyard, I'm not trying to, I don't want to encourage you to do anything you're not comfortable with. We happen to have pretty easy access to a graveyard. And again, I don't know why I'm taking credit for it. My husband is the one that goes out and harvests all these things. He kind of enjoys, I think he kind of enjoys the adventure to go out and get me some whatever I want. Okay, so there you go. And it's all nicely broken up on the surface. Graveyard dirt. Now, what I was saying is don't panic if you don't have any graveyard dirt, because you don't need to use graveyard dirt. You can use something that you can get easily and you probably have anyway, and that is patchouli. Patchouli is a great substitute for graveyard dirt. Patchouli is often used as a replacement. It's very common. It attracts people that are associated with the underworld. That's one of its properties. And you will smell patchouli in a lot of rituals and things taking place at Samhain. That's one of the things. As with, some other things are more common, but patchouli is used too. Patchouli is used a lot. And I'm going to, because I love patchouli so much, you don't know how much I love it, I'm going to add patchouli to my recipe as well. It's not going to just be the graveyard dirt, it's going to be patchouli. And again, I'm adding a spoon of that. Might be overkill? I don't think so. I don't think you can overkill anything with patchouli. Now, of course, this is going to make it brown. It's going to make it darker. And again, there's really no big pieces in here. A little bit of stem, maybe. Okay. But I'm going to add that. Now, if I think that is just too much, if I just think it's just too coarse or too thick, too, dark, I can add more cascarilla. If I think it's going to be too heavy. That's just something that, it's not necessarily experience, it's just something, what you feel. Do I feel that's heavy? I feel it's a little bit heavy. And I don't want to contaminate my Cascarilla powder, so I'm just going to put a little more. I'm going to put like another level, just a little level spoon in there, just to keep that nice and light, because I've added a good bit of the heavier things. Now that just feels, for some reason, that just feels right to me. You got to trust your instincts. Oh. And like I said before, I like to add a little bit of rosemary just because I just think rosemary is, and that's like maybe a quarter teaspoon. That's not even that much. Rosemary is very powerful. You don't need a lot. And that's it. That's all my dry ingredients. See how simple that was? Now, before you do the next one, I'm making a mess. Part of it's me and part of it is my van. So that's just life. That's life in my kitchen in the middle of summer. Even though we're now into autumn, it's autumn in California is sort of like third summer. Spring being first summer, summer being summer, summer being second summer, and autumn being third summer. Okay. So anyway, before I get ready to add my water, because I want to be able to, once I add my water to it, I want to get ready to, because it's gonna, it doesn't harden real fast, but it's easier if you work pretty fast, because then it's easier for cleanup. And what I'm going to do, what I'm going to use is I have these little pieces of this size of wax paper. It's just one option. You can use other things, but I like wax paper. That I'm going to mix it up and portion it out on a piece of wax paper, and then I'll show you how I form it, and then keep it in the wax paper until it dries, until it hardens. So I just have my wax paper here piled up, ready to. So it's ready for me, and I'm ready to add my water. Now, what kind of water we adding? We're adding, in my case, it's rainwater. And this is the rainwater I showed you before. I think I did. But I keep a jar, a big collection jar, out in my garden with a crystal in the bottom always. And when it rains, we put it out, we collect rainwater, and then we leave it out, and we leave it out every full moon for charging. It's always charged. And then after the end of the rainy season, or when the jar is hopefully full, we will come in and we will divide up the water and then rejar it. In this case, I just put it, I have another crystal in the bottom. And you can see it's not real clear because it's rainwater. This has been filtered one time because the other reason, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little bit yellow. Not yellow, a little bit, and there's a little bit of stuff floating in there. What that is, I'll tell you what that is. In order for me, if you just keep water, especially rainwater, in a jar, after a while it's going to go pretty bad on you. It's going to be pretty, let me move that back out of the way. It's going to be pretty, it's going to get pretty disgusting. So, I put a little bit of vinegar, just a drop of apple cider vinegar or some other kind of vinegar in it to try to keep it from harboring too much icky stuff. Now, some people like to put vodka, a little drop of splash of vodka in here. I've done that in the past, but because it does keep it keeps it cleaner. But for me, vodka is something you use to disinfect with. Apple cider vinegar or vinegar is something you use to ferment with. If you see I'll show you when I turn the camera back around. Behind me on the counter are jars of vinegar that I am making vinegar out of peach peels and orange rinds, and orange peels and peach peels, and it's a fermenting. It's a living kind of a something. It's going to keep my water. It's going to keep some of the bad stuff out of my water, but at the same time, it's alive within my water. And what you're seeing in my jar here is it's forming a mother vinegar, which is the cloudy stuff. If you get a jar of unfiltered apple cider, organic apple cider, you usually see some of that in the bottom. That's the mother. You want to see that. That's healthy. That's a healthy vinegar. It's something that's growing and healthy. And that in my rainwater is so cool to use in my spell work. Just saying. Okay. Van, you're licking me. You go lay down. Lay down. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to give this a little bit of a shake. Just to start my water a little bit. And remember, I said I just want to add this a little tiny bit at a time. So, I'll just pour a little bit in there. And then I'm going to take the syringe and keep going and adding a little bit at a time. Because I just want it, I'll start with my stick. I just wanted enough to, I might have added enough already. See, that didn't take much. That might be plenty wet. And again, at this point, if you put too much water in accidentally, just a little bit of water, you could add a little bit more eggshell if you wanted to. I think that was like the perfect amount of water. So I didn't even have to show you, but I would have just, I would have just dipped this in here, drawn it up, the syringe up, and then I would have been able to just push it down and add a little bit of time. You see, that's how it would go. Okay. But I don't think I had to do that, because this has really come together. It's wet, but it's not too terribly wet. You see that? It looks really, really gray or brown or something right now. But it will lighten up a little bit, and you'll see. I'll show you. As it gets dry, it'll change its color. So I think that's pretty good, actually. So I'm going to just put that aside. And I'm going to show you how I portion it out. This is real quick. I take my... I'm having trouble figuring out these cameras because it's upside down. Okay. So there's my paper. And I'm just going to take a bit, flop it on there. And I'm kind of using the paper. See, I don't want to get this. I'm using the paper. I don't want to get all over my hands. That's just ick. So I can use the spoon or I can use the stick. And just, I want to kind of roll it so that it's kind of in a log shape. I wouldn't try to go too thin with it, because as it gives up its water, it will shrink a little bit. Now, depending on what you use in your, see how easy that was? In your recipe, if you use flour or something like that, it shrinks up a lot. Now I just am really lightly going to roll it like that to make it a little more smooth and rolled. And then I'm going to simply, loosely roll that up. Okay, and I'm going to set that aside. Here I have a I have another disposable container that I have a paper towel in that I'm just going to lay that in there to try to, so it dries until it gets dry. And I just keep doing it till I get rid of my stuff. You can make it as big or as little you want. I wouldn't make it too big because I think it's nice to keep some, don't use one all the time. You could experiment because your recipe, now you could flatten the ends. I've seen people go to all kinds of crazy extremes to try to get this perfectly shaped. So that it's really nice and round. But I think that's sort of crazy. I don't think you need to do that. On the edges. And there. This paper only has to be on there initially, a little bit in the beginning, and then it will, then it's ready, before it's ready to come off. There. I'm batting the fan. You must wonder to yourself why I don't just turn off the fan. I think I would die. I don't know. When we turn our fans on, my husband and I turn the fans on when it starts to get warm because we do not have air conditioning. We do have all of our windows open. But it's so funny because as the weather cools off, we just start adding layers of clothes and layers of blanket to our bed. Like some nights, even now, we have a blanket on our bed. And we have fans on. Like, what's that about? I could turn the fan off and I wouldn't maybe need the blanket, but, I really like to have... I'm used to that. We call ourselves, we say we're addicted to moving air. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the way I feel sometimes. Okay, so here I can just do it here on the ground. On the table. I can roll it. It's just a really light. I'm not putting any pressure at all. And again, if I want to smooth out the ends a little bit, I can. I don't have to. Because you can take the sharp edges off when it's dry. You can take them off easily. Okay, just rolling that up. And I think I'm going to have enough maybe for 6 of these. That's what I got out of the last batch. I might have more. You know, I don't like to, and these are gonna last. These are gonna last in your witch's cupboard. You know, as long as you keep them dry. Yeah, and I have enough for, I think, 2 more. See, I do these kind of shortcuts when I'm making pie crust too. If I don't want to get my hands all sticky or whatever. I let the paper work for me. Let your tools work for you. In this case, I'm going to use the wax paper anyway, so I might as well use it from the beginning. So again, you can pick it up in your hands and roll it, or you can just simply roll it gently on here. If it gets too wet, if the wax paper gets too wet, it might make a hole in the wax paper. But don't worry about it, it'll still work. That's just to keep them from going together. Try to keep them in form, some kind of a form, until they dry. So I'm going to just divide half of this on this one. And it's getting kind of icky. I think it's nice and cold. I think it would feel good if I did it on my fingers. But I just don't want it on my fingers. I'm going to be doing something later that I don't want to be cleaning plaster off my fingers. But I'm sure it will just rinse right off. I don't think you have to worry about it. People have asked me if I would recommend using gloves. I would not. I'm a person, I make my own soap, my own lye soap, and I hate to admit it, I don't even really wear gloves very often when I make soap, which is bad. But I've never been burnt, you know. That's what I can't handle. I will put a mask on sometimes so I don't inhale the fume, because there's nothing fun about inhaling the fumes when you're making soap. But as far as this is going to be quite big, but I don't have another piece of paper, so it's going to be big. And the only thing wrong with big ones are they just might take a little longer to dry. But I don't think, when we're talking about this size, I do not think that's a problem at all. I'm just old school. I do a lot of camping. I do a lot of cooking outside, and I'm just I'm more flexible, I think, maybe. Actually, I'm going to touch it. Oh, it's not even that bad. Because I want that a little bit narrower. It'll just be longer. So it's not that bad. It's just a little bit on my fingers. And there we go. Now I just have a few more things I just want to show you. I'm going to change the camera back one more time so I can, there they are, all tucked in, ready for the night. This is again a little disposable container. I don't know what was in it, lunch meat or something from the deli. And then I just cover it, but I'm not tightening because I want air to get to it, but I'm sort of protecting it, so I just have it sitting here waiting, and I will keep checking on it. Okay, you know what? I can show you right here. I don't have to turn the camera to show you this. These are chalks. Remember I told you that oh wait, I don't want to show you. Well, these are fine. First I want to show you these. These are chalks that I made using flour, cornstarch, and the Cascarilla powder. Okay. Hard as, how do I want to say? And they started out at least probably as thick as these that I've made, but they really went down. They went down in size. But these are so hard. I have a brick here I want to show you. These are so hard that when I want to write on it, I have to push so hard and they just kind of crumble. They will write. Okay. They will write pretty well. Okay. But they're so hard, I think in a lot of cases I would worry about where you write. You have to be very, very careful where you write with these. But they work, okay? They really do work. This is just a brick, which is the same kind of thing as writing on a sidewalk. I would never write this using it on a table or on a wall in your house. It would absolutely ruin, I think it would ruin the finish. You saw it kind of broke for me, but it's still very usable after it breaks, okay? Now these are pretty old. I've had these for a long time. Again, these are made with the flour, cornstarch, Cascarilla powder combination. Okay, instead of the plaster. Now these are ones that I made yesterday. This is only 24. Oh, you can maybe see the difference in the color. See the difference in the color, can you? These are relatively hard. They're not as, these are so hard I think it could kill somebody with one of these if it was bigger. This one, if I wanted to write with it, I don't want to break it because it might be too thin. I don't have to push near as hard. You see that? There's my, I don't know why I'm writing M. I think I'm writing a W is what I want it to be. And it'll be upside down. Okay, but I hardly had to push. And look how nice and bright that is. You know, compared to this one. I just like it better. I think they both work. They both work. But I just like it. I like it better. This is much softer. It's easy. You don't have to really, really push. And the fun thing is, you know, you can go out on your walk and you can go, you can write anything you want down along your walk, and it's just a big kick. Isn't that a kick? All right. That's all I want to show you. That's really all I want to show you. Again, Cascarilla powder, you have to have the Cascarilla powder in it. That's your major thing. So make your own. Make your own Cascarilla, and if you really can't make your own Cascarilla, or for whatever reason, you can go on my shop, and I'll leave a link down below where you can buy Cascarilla from me and my magical hands. Okay. I mean, thank you so much for watching. And good luck. Good luck with your powder, with your own chalk. Good luck with your chalk. Let me know if you do it. Let me know if you make it. Okay. I wish you blessings.